Hi, welcome to Lovin Sheila, the podcast. Today we're going to talk about happy endings. When you get the happy ending, but it wasn't quite what you expected. I'm Sheila. I am a mother, a divorcee, a woman who is evolving and just trying to figure it out and sharing the things that I'm learning along the way with you. If you will, take a moment right now, before we get too far into this, to subscribe to our channel. We're coming out with new podcasts bi-weekly, and I think it will encourage your soul. And I would be happy if you would take this journey with me, and let's learn together and let's evolve together. Now, let's talk about this happy ending. It has taken me some time, and I've certainly been evolving, and it certainly has been a lot of trial and error, which I have shared with you all along the way. Now, through this trial and error, I've learned that the happy ending isn't always a fairy tale. It's not always what you expect. It can come with a little twist. I think it's about the perspective you take into this. Recently I was on vacation. I was talking to my son, and though he's young, sometimes he gives me some good tidbits and some good pieces of wisdom. And I shared with him about some relationships, and I told him about one. I said, yeah, we were together for a year, and it was a big waste of time. And that was my way of minimizing it. And I don't think necessarily it was a big waste of time, but I did think it was a waste of time. But he told me it's not a waste of time. It's if you learn something. But it took a young man for me to reframe and rethink the narrative of my story. And so now as I approach things, I want to have his perspective. I want to have that perspective. It's not a waste of time if you're learning something. So I want to share with you about my happy ending, unexpected happy ending. In the past, I've kind of approached relationships romanticizing, fantasizing, looking for the dream, looking for the fairy tale. And that hasn't always served me well. And so now that I'm focused, I'm Lovin Sheila, and I'm doing the work, I'm trying to go in this with more of a plan, more of an objective, and still have some openness, but at the same time, look at reality. So I developed my guidelines, and I developed my standards, and I decided that I'm not rushing into anything. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to use all the things that I've told you about. I'm going to have a BS meter. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to give it about 4 months so we can get to know each other, and before we make any commitments, so that we have seen some turbulence and we know that we can survive it, and we know how we behave in those times, just to give me more data to make better decisions. Because now I'm content. I'm happy with my life. I'm not looking for anyone to fill a void or to make me happy. I've reached a place where I'm content and I'm happy with my life. And now it's all about the contribution. And so I believe that I was careless with my heart in the past, and I kind of threw it around, and I gave it to people who were not worthy. And so I'm being a little more careful with my heart. And here's how I approached my latest experience. First of all, I did something a little different. At the request or the encouragement of my brother, he said, "Why don't you try a dating app?" And so I did it, and overall it was pretty successful. And I met a man. He was different. He was from another country. I don't know that it was just a physical attraction that attracted me to him. I think it was his essence. It was just what he was about, what he was saying, and it drew me to him. He even said he was an alien, and in some kind of way, I felt like I got him, and at the same time, I felt like he got me. So we had dinner, our first date, and I think we had dinner for about 2.5 hours, and we just talked and we just shared a lot of things. And I shared, my experience with my divorce, and I think what really got me is he said, "You were in crisis," and I was like, "Yeah, it was crisis." I said, "That's what my therapist had wrote on my insurance information, crisis." And some kind of way in those moments we just clicked. I went on vacation, and we continued to talk. He offered to pick me up at the airport, and though I didn't accept it, I thought it was a very generous offer. I appreciated it. We set up our second date. We went to a Spanish restaurant, and he was from Spain, and he introduced me to some cuisine I didn't know. And I'm not a foodie. And so the food I did enjoy, and I told him I could survive one day in Spain for sure. He worked in the TV industry, and I actually shared that I have a podcast. And so he asked me for the information. I shared it with him. He watched the podcast. He gave me feedback, the positive and the constructive, I'll say. And he told me, some things about my environment. He told me that I needed to be more vulnerable, that I wasn't really being vulnerable. And I kind of was like, I've told a lot of my business here, but he was encouraging me to go to the next level, to really connect. So he offered to edit my podcast. I had never been edited, and that was like one of the most difficult things that I had done, because everything that I say to you is so raw. Everything that I say to you is not for the man that I'm dating. But, I opened up and I gave him the raw footage of my podcast, and he began to edit it. And I was with him, and he asked me, what are you trying to say, and what is that supposed to mean? And I had never been edited before, so it was very challenging, but we made it through. It was difficult for me because I was saying, at that time I was talking about some very difficult times and some personal things, and I was very emotional in this podcast. And I recall he took me and, we sat knee to knee, and he was patient with me, and he talked me through it, and he worked with me and helped me to figure out what I was trying to say and what I wanted to put out there. And I believe that we bonded through that. We bonded through me sharing such vulnerable and personal information, and also through the patience and the time that he took with me to help me share the message that I wanted to get out to the world. And that built our connection. And we certainly had hiccups along the way during this time, but we managed those hiccups. I recall early on, even before that, one day he hadn't called me, as was his custom, and I told my family, I said, he broke up with me or whatever. Even though we weren't together, I was just making light of it. It's like, because I haven't heard, I knew something was off. So I went ahead and I texted him, and he told me whatever he told me, something was off, and I was like, oh, that's no problem. We could talk about that. And so, I went to his house and we talked about the issues that he had, and it was really simple. It was just not knowing some things, just not knowing, and that was my first feeling of like, yeah, I really did it, because communication has never been my thing. But I was like, oh, what's going on? How can I make it better? What do we need to do? What do we need to talk about? And after that conversation, and once we got an understanding, I recall he asked me if I was going to break his heart. And that always resonated with me. And I was very mindful of that throughout the time that we dealt with each other. I had every intention of handling him the way that I wanted to be handled. And that's like a delicate flower. And so when he said those words to me throughout our exploration, it stuck. Shortly after that, he got a game for us to play, because we were like, we know all these serious, deep details about each other, but we don't know, like, where do you work, Sheila? What do you do besides this podcast? So, we wanted to get to know each other, and I like that effort. And so we did that. When I told him, oh, I want to go on a road trip, we went on a road trip. And, he's like, well, let's go to Palm Desert. Let's go hang out. So he told me he likes to make things better. And what I found is, in our experience, in our time together, in our exploration, as we called it, he enhanced my life. He made things better. I was happy. I enjoyed myself. I had fun. I was smiling uncontrollably, and I caught myself. And I told him, I feel like I'm in a movie. As much as I was trying not to romanticize it or fantasize it or make it a fairy tale, at times it just felt like a movie, because I felt happy. I felt joy. But I was also asking myself, could I commit to this man? Um, I liked him. Could this be it? He's not the typical man that I would date. Is that okay? Is it okay? And so I was struggling with that internally, and I was focusing on that, and I was talking to my therapist. She told me, don't focus on the outcome, and to be present, and quit thinking the grass is always greener, and just be in the moment and enjoy. Because prior to that, I could think of everything that he wasn't, but at the same time, I was overwhelmed by all the things that he brought to my life, by all the things he was. There were things that I had on my list that he did not have, but I was overwhelmed and overcome by the things that weren't on my list that he did have, and they were meaningful and they were impactful. And that, like, right in this moment, that leads me to something he said, where that's the magic, the unexpected part. That's the magic. And I can honestly say that was the magic. And one day I brought a game to play. It was called Intimacy. And we played the game, and that's when we determined that we were in an exploration and not a relationship. That's the word we use. And so as we the game was great. It was very intimate, and I learned so much. But what I learned that had me perturbed was he was just as afraid of commitment as I was. Like, he was just like me. And all this time, I had been working to make sure I protected his heart. I needed to give myself the same care because we were in the same boat. And I think I even mentioned, I said, I was worried about being emotionally available. Are you emotionally available? And he said, yes, because I show up. And I was like, okay, I guess I thought I was showing up too. But anyway, so I just really began to get into this whole emotional availability thing. And I shared a lot about that with you because I was really digging in and trying to find out, am I ready for any type of commitment? Am I ready for a relationship? Or do I just want to have fun? What am I all about? My whole stick has been, I'm ready for a relationship. I don't want a life partnership. But were my actions and my thoughts aligned with that? That was a curious situation for me that I needed to get to the bottom of. It was difficult for me to work through that, but I was committed and determined to work through it and to come up with some resolution and understanding of me, and to also make sure I'm not a fraud and make sure that everything that I'm talking about is true. And typically we would not want to talk about relationship stuff. We just talk about everything that we were doing. I did eventually say to him, I have feelings for you. And he likewise said, I have feelings for you. He used to always tell me, I like you. I really like you. And I adore you. And you're under my skin and all that kind of stuff. And I think that was when I said, I have feelings for you, that was the first time I ever really reciprocated. And he said, I do too. And I thought it was so simple of me because I said, who says I have feelings for you? But it was the most I was able to say at that time. I didn't want to say I love you, but I did want him to know that I really cared about him. And it wasn't just a casual thing for me. It was like, I have feelings. I have some attachment. That helped me to know. And when I said that I am available emotionally. It just takes time. And that's what I've been preaching about here. It takes time. So I released my guard more and more. And prior to me telling him about my feelings, he told me, I called it a read. I told him he read me. He said, you want love, but you haven't identified what it looks like, and you don't put yourself out there, and you're passive about it. And I was like, okay. And I didn't push back because I felt like it was true. And I felt like it was a read, but I felt like you can read me as long as it's accurate, and I'll accept it. And so that's what I think later made me tell him, I do have feelings for you. I wanted to put myself out there a little bit and expose myself and be vulnerable. Because while I was trying to be vulnerable and really understand if I'm emotionally available, I went and I got a whiteboard and I'm like writing it down. Why do I want to be in a relationship with one person right now? Or do I want to be in a relationship? Or do I just want to have fun? What is it? What are you trying to do? And so I just really wanted to dig into my feelings and see what I was trying to do. What is my purpose in dating and explorations and meeting people? So I started to move forward. I started to open up more. I started to trust him to share more of my feelings. And then one day, suddenly, abruptly, we stumbled upon the talk that we had both been avoiding. We were approaching 4 months, which is my timetable to make some decisions on how to proceed. And one of the things I recall he said is he believed that the gap in the things that we did not share in common was pretty much too big for us to overcome to get to a place of love. For me, there was not much more to say after that. I'll be honest, I was a little offended by that because I had some things that I had not necessarily discussed that were concerning to me, but I was trying to work it out internally in therapy. And I even told him I'm fighting, to overcome the things, the preconceptions that I have in my head, in my mind. And you're going to tell me these minor things are too big of a gap for you. So I felt stronger. To be honest with you, I felt stronger than him, that I was able to push through and work on things that he wasn't able to. After that conversation, the exploration with the Spaniard ended. I came to an end suddenly, abruptly. And it took me about 48 hours to get over my initial feelings of what the heck. I felt a little bit betrayed. I felt like the whole purpose of our exploration, our journey, was to get me to open up, to be vulnerable, to trust. And then when I got to a good place, a more open place, a more trusting place, we called it off. And so that left me with some feelings. But I would say after reflecting for about 48 hours, I realized that we called it off with love, with care, with tears, and we weren't the one for each other. I could hear my own words saying, "Are you available enough to let someone close enough to you that they could potentially hurt you?" Because that's what I said in some of my most recent podcasts. But through this exploration, through this journey, I got the answer. And the answer is yes. That's what I learned. So, what I learned about me is that I am available to let someone close enough to me that they can potentially hurt me. I am emotionally available. And so sometimes I think you have to go through the process to know. I've been through a lot. I've experienced a lot. My heart was damaged after my divorce. There were some things that I had to, like I said in an early podcast, there was like pieces of me, and I was broken. And I had to put it all back together and be restored. And over the process with you in this podcast, that's what I've done. I put it back together, and I've learned so much, and I've shared most of the things that I've gone through, what I've learned, hopefully to edify you as it has edified me. So the answer is, to the question that I struggled with, am I emotionally available? Yes, I am. But okay, I want to say yes, I have to reframe. It was not a waste of time. Engagements that we have are not a waste of our time. If we learn something, if we take something away from it, if we were present and were able to enjoy it, then it wasn't a waste of time. And so I'm changing my vocabulary, and I'm changing my perspective on the time that I spend in different situations or engagements. I learned that I experienced new things. I did things I would not have done had we not had our exploration. And I smiled, and I was happy. And that's meaningful. If you find someone who makes you happy, who makes you smile, whether it's, for a month, a year, or the rest of your life, it's meaningful, because we have to appreciate every breath in every moment. And so instead of despising the moment or regretting the time, I can look back and say, well, that was fun. I enjoyed myself. I smiled. I laughed. I felt alive. And so if you're having experiences that make you feel alive, and you're being respected, protected, cared for, and you feel loved, then it's not a waste of time, because we deserve to have that, and we deserve that to be real. And I felt the feelings that I had and the things that we exchanged were real, and I can't take anything away from that, because just because things do not work out doesn't mean it's a waste of time. It's a learning experience. It's an evolution. It's an exchange of experience. It's exchange of experience. And what I learned is what I've been talking to you about, that I have boundaries. And I was giving myself a hard time saying, are you emotionally available? But I had boundaries, and I wasn't prepared to let someone come into my life and get all of me. And I wasn't prepared to give my heart carelessly. I had to take my time. I had to have experiences. I had to experience some good times. I had to experience some kerfuffles. I had to see how I was cared for. And once I felt that I was cared for, then I opened up and I released more. But there were boundaries to start, and there were boundaries to end. there were always boundaries. And so that's what I learned. I'm not just talking about boundaries here. I'm living it. I'm walking it. I'm practicing it. And it feels good. Even when I talked to him and when we were having our final conversation, I said, I have to be true to myself. I want to do the things that I'm talking about. I'm not here for situationships. I'm open to possibilities. But once the possibilities have been eradicated, it's not a place for me. I have boundaries. I'm going somewhere. I'm on a journey. I'm exploring, but I have a destination in mind, and that destination is for my permanent partner, my husband. So, but I learned that I was applying my boundaries, and I could walk in it, and I could put 10 toes down on it, and that was very affirming to me. So that's what I want to say to you, ladies. Stand on your boundaries. Don't forget them. They're there for a reason. They're protecting me to this day. They protected he and I from going any further from the potential of one of us getting hurt. So they're there for a reason. And proper communication helps you to better enforce those boundaries. Another thing I learned through this is that I'm okay being challenged and being pushed. He definitely challenged me. He took me out of a comfort zone where I knew what to expect from a certain type of man, or I knew everything. He took things and made them better. He challenged me to be better. He called me out. He read me in a loving fashion, and I received it. So at the end of the day, challenged me to be better, and I am. And so that's a good thing. So that's something that I can take away from this. And so look at that. Is it making you better? Is it propelling you forward? Though this relationship or exploration did not work out, it propelled me forward. It propelled me to be a better person, or be a better partner for whomever I end up with. It propelled me to communicate better, to work through conflict better, to have difficult conversations better. I'm ready. Also, love or like can come in various packages. It may come in what you think, it may come in what you don't think. But just like I learned to be open to where it's coming from, to who's offering it, and to how it comes. It may not come in the form that I expected. They may not love me like I thought I needed to be loved, but then, I don't know everything. And that was a theme throughout this exploration. And I think even in my just regular life, just be open, just approach things with an open mind. I learned because I practiced communicating my needs. And I didn't always communicate it on the spot. Sometimes I needed a moment to reflect, but I communicated my needs and my wants. And when things did not work for me and what I could live without, I communicated that. And so, again, I say to you, don't be hesitant to communicate your wants and your needs. The only way you can have a relationship is that they know you and they know what you want, what works for you and what will not work. It's imperative that we have that exchange of information. One thing I know within this situation, and I could have done better, is he wasn't actually looking for marriage. He was looking for someone to share his life with in that form. I was long-term thinking marriage, and I was like, he told me, I said, oh, you'll be all right. You'll come along if we get there. And I think in moving forward, I will change that perspective, because if that's what you want, if you want someone just to spend your life with, then go find someone to spend your life with. As for me, the papers mean something to me. And I learned that I still have some growing to do. I'm emotionally available, but maybe I'm not available. And maybe I, like he said, don't put myself out there. And like someone said, I don't jump in. I don't make too many phone calls. I don't initiate very much. And so I have some growing to do. Like there's still like a safe spot where I'm like, I'll let them come get me. But I realize that if there's something that you want, let's not be passive about it. Let's go get it. And then also, like I mentioned, I told you when we had our final conversation, I felt stronger than him. And not to say anything, but I felt, though I'm a delicate flower, I believe in my strength and I believe in my ability to persevere. And I just believe in me. And even though this was disappointing, it was a learning experience. And what I take away from this is my determination and my perseverance, determined to be better in every area, to love better, um, to care better, to communicate better. And so I'm going to continue to persevere and work on those things because they make us better. So I encourage us all to keep working on ourselves. Keep, even if we feel like we have arrived, keep on working, keep doing more and keep doing more, because you never reach the point where you can't grow anymore. And why do I say this is a happy ending? We're not together. It's over. We're friends. The outcome isn't what I'm hoping for when I enter into any exploration or any talking phase or anything like that. Obviously, I'm hoping that this will be the one and this is where it all ends. But I still believe it was a happy ending because I spent more time enjoying the moments, enjoying the learnings, enjoying the process. And sometimes we forget the process and we just want to get right to the end. We don't want to go through the journey, but you got to go through it. And so I went through it. I enjoyed it. I had great experiences. I learned something, and I feel affirmed in my ability to give love and to make a person feel special and loved. And yeah, I did question that in the past, but now I have no question about it whatsoever. So that's something that I further learned about myself. And for the way that I came out with dignity, self-respect, boundaries intact, determined to pursue what I want, determined to pursue what I want, and more importantly, knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt, beyond anything that I am emotionally available. And that was a challenge for me, and that was something I was really fighting to determine. And I have the answer. And for that reason, it is a happy ending. It was an opportunity for me to look at my heart after the damage from my marriage and rediscover me and my ability to love, my capacity for love, like we've talked about, and apply all the things that I've learned this 2-year journey of Lovin Sheila. I struggled to apply the things I've been talking about and learned over the last couple of years, but I did it. And maybe I did it slowly sometimes, and maybe I did it reluctantly at other times, but I did it. So I learned, and I'm open, and I'm able to make better decisions, which is what I've been talking about, better decisions on what's best for me. And so at this time, that ending was best for me. And for that reason, it's a happy ending. I believe I'm a better woman for the experience. And I believe that he's a better man for the experience. So don't despise endings. They happen for a reason. Like Dr. Cloud said, sometimes they're necessary endings. And this necessary ending was my happy ending because it has prepared me for whatever is next on this journey. I don't know what that is, but I'll certainly be sharing it with you, whatever it is. But if you're going through pain, if you're going through heartbreak, if you're going through breakups, if you are just exploring and don't know what it is, go for the ride, take the journey, keep your boundaries, be open as much as you can. But what I learned is that if you take your time, you'll hit some milestones and you will begin to open up and you will begin to trust and you will be able to make good, educated, informed decisions because you will have the data. Protect your heart. Proceed cautiously until you don't have to anymore. You to hold your head up high and know that you are desirable and that someone wants you and you're someone's cat's meow and dog's bow wow, and hold on. And in the meantime, in between time, don't forget, just keep loving on you and taking care of yourself because you'll understand that you're pretty phenomenal. So just keep being phenomenal and appreciating who you are and loving on you like I'm loving on Sheila over here. Don't forget, give me your comments. I want to hear from you. Comment, subscribe, share, Check me out on IG or TikTok. I'll see you on the next Lovin Sheila. Bye for now and take care of yourself.